This happened when I was about 10 years old and living in my old hometown, a small village. Most of the people in the village chose to work as farmers, trading fruits and vegetables to the big cities, but my family was a little different. My father discovered that selling mushrooms was a lucrative business, so he began trading in easy-to-grow mushrooms. Mushrooms grew very well and made a lot of money for my family because of the soil compatibility, but he didn't grow them at home. Instead, on a mountain near the village where it was quieter and had a better climate to grow mushrooms. That day while eating, I overheard my father telling my mother that he would have to go to the mushroom farm tomorrow to check on the situation. I was curious and wanted to go there to see what it was like to grow mushrooms, but my mother stopped me. My father, on the other hand, was interested because I had begun to care about the family business, so he agreed to let me come with him tomorrow, despite my mother's persistent nagging. The car arrived early the next morning to pick me up with him. It was a small truck owned by a villager who worked as a hired driver. My mom came out to see me and my father off. She saw us got into the truck, while she continued to remind me to follow my father and never deviate from this path. Because it was a truck, there were no passenger seats, so my father and I sat in the back of the truck. Seeing how worried I was, my father reassured me that everything would be fine. He'd just go up there for a bit and then return home. The truck just kept going forward, leaving a cloud of black smoke behind. I fell asleep 2 or 3 times, but still, we hadn't arrived every time I awoke. My father said it took more than an hour. I also wonder why it took so long to go to the edge of the village. My father explained that the truck couldn't go fast because the road was very difficult and the ground was full of rocks. At this point, I noticed that instead of houses, I was seeing craggy cliffs and tall grasses because no one had cleaned them in a long time. The truck couldn't go fast because one side of the road was a deep abyss and the other was a cliff. But it was okay because we would arrive after more than 10 minutes. My father told the driver what time to come back to pick us up and then said goodbye to him. My father and I then had to walk up the hill, following a small path surrounded by dense forests. We had walked for a long time and still hadn't arrived. I was tired and sweaty. My father had no intention of stopping to rest and he warned me not to stay in this forest for too long, so he urged me to try a little harder. Fortunately, it only took about 20 minutes to get there, even though my legs felt like they were about to fall off and breathing fast. Then I noticed a small house with numerous mushroom-growing mounds in front of it. Inside there was an old man. He poured water for my father and me to drink, and my father immediately discussed something important with him. It appeared to be related to the sale and export of the mushrooms to the other regions, but due to some difficulties, they discussed it tensely. I was thirsty and drank a full glass of water while my father was continuing to converse with the old man. I was too young at the time to understand what the two of them were talking about. I was just sitting still and a little bored. This place wasn't so entertaining as I expected. After that, I felt the need to urinate, so I asked the old man where the toilet was, but he said it didn't exist and that I could go to the yard and go whenever I wanted. So I dashed out the door to deal with it. My father and the man were still engrossed in their conversation, not paying attention to me leaving. I was pulling up my pants after I finished when I noticed a large white rabbit in front of me. The rabbit noticed me and dashed into the woods. I was bored, so when I saw the rabbit I chased it for fun, not remembering my mother's advice before leaving. The rabbit kept running faster while I was trying my best to catch up. I couldn't keep up with it until it reached the fence that separated the mushroom growing area from the forest. At the time, I was hesitant to go further because it appeared to be a little dark in front of me, but the rabbit seemed to want me to play with it, and when I stopped, it also stopped and turned to look at me as if waiting for me. I jumped over the fence, no longer worried, and went straight into the forest ahead, engrossed in chasing the white rabbit without knowing where it was leading me to. After a while of running, I came to a T-junction and the rabbit vanished without a trace, leaving me perplexed. Then I slowly walked back. looking around for the white rabbit. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see it. How could it go away so fast? I'd seen it ahead of me and then it vanished just like that. I was walking around looking for it when something touched my forehead from above, as if it were hanging down from a tree. I panicked when I looked up because that thing was a body. It was hanging down in front of me and my forehead had touched the feet of the body. I couldn't move my legs and couldn't even scream. I could just stare at the body hanging from a tree branch above my head and panic. This was my first time seeing the scene and it freaked me out. I would never forget what I'd just seen. His face was gray and decomposing. Insects were eating his face. I quickly gathered my courage and turned to flee. But as soon as I turned around, my eyes were met with something even more horrifying. When I was chasing the white rabbit, I didn't see this at all. It was a series of bodies hanging from the trees. I guessed more than 5 people had committed suicide here. I wasn't sure if there were any other bodies in the forest. But I didn't have time to think about it because the panic made me freeze. My legs couldn't move. I thought my heart could jump out of my chest. My eyes darkened and I passed out without realizing it. I couldn't remember what happened after that. All I remembered was hearing my father's voice in my ear when I woke up. It appeared they found me and brought me home. The old man and my dad both knew what was going on. They just didn't know how I got into that place, because the area was deep inside and the road was difficult to go to because of the many turns. I inquired about the bodies, but the old man and my father did not want me to know about them, most likely because I was too young to understand these matters. The 2 of them simply asked me to rest for a while and then return home. After a while, when I became older, I heard people in the village talking about those bodies. Apparently they were hired workers for a large company in the area, but were exploited to the extreme. So they chose suicide.